All right, today we're going to unpack a really counterintuitive idea. The notion that setbacks, that failures, are actually essential for hitting our biggest goals.
I mean, really think about that. It goes against pretty much everything we're taught, doesn't it? We are programmed from day one to avoid failure. But what if it's the one thing we actually need the most?
And this really is the core of the problem. From the time we're kids, that message is just hammered into our heads. Mistakes are bad. Getting something wrong, that's something you should be ashamed of.
So let's dig into that for a second. Where does this fear actually come from? Well, it's pretty deeply embedded in what you could call our culture of perfection. I mean, think about it. We're just surrounded by highlight reels on social media, at work, you name it. And that creates this insane pressure, right? It makes any little misstep feel like this huge public humiliation instead of, just a normal part of the process. Okay, but what if we just reframe this whole thing? Let's look at this central paradox that completely challenges that fear-based way of thinking.
So get this, success and failure aren't actually opposites, not at all. In this way of thinking, failure is a stepping stone. It's a necessary stop on the journey to success. Yeah, those painful moments, they're actually the fertile ground where the real growth happens. Okay, so that's the big idea, but how does this actually work in the real world? How do mistakes, actual failures, become the raw material for these massive breakthroughs?
What's so fascinating is that the information you get from a failed experiment is almost never wasted. The destination might not be what you expected, but the journey itself, it always gives you valuable information. A perfect example is Alexander Fleming. The guy wasn't trying to discover the world's first antibiotic. No way. He was just trying to grow some bacteria. And this one contaminated, totally failed experiment led to one of the most important medical discoveries in all of human history. Just wow. And look, this isn't just some historical anecdote. This principle is a cornerstone of modern innovation. Just look at Silicon Valley, where the whole idea is to embrace failure as a tool for learning as fast as you possibly can. So this whole fail fast idea, it's actually a really smart strategic process. You launch something that you know isn't perfect, just to see how real people react. Then you listen to that feedback, all of it, and learn from the criticism. And then you iterate. This whole cycle of rapid small failures lets you outlearn and ultimately outmaneuver competitors who are too cautious. Okay, so if failure can be so productive, why is it still so paralyzing for so many of us? Well, the answer really lies in our psychology. Specifically, it's all about our mindset.
And this is such a critical distinction to make. On one hand, you have the fixed mindset. This is the belief that your intelligence and your talents are just set in stone. So any failure feels like a final verdict on who you are as a person. But on the other hand, a growth mindset sees abilities as things you can develop and grow. So failure, it's not a verdict, it's just feedback. It's a temporary event, not some permanent part of your identity. And that, right there, is the crucial difference. It's not that people with a growth mindset like failing. Of course they want to succeed. But when they stumble, they're able to separate the event from their sense of self. The failure doesn't become who they are. So all of this really leads to one ultimate skill. Because, understanding the theory is one thing, but actually putting it into practice, that takes resilience. I mean, it doesn't matter how talented you are going to face obstacles. It's inevitable. So the goal can't be to have this perfect stumble-free journey. That's impossible. The real skill is in the recovery. It's about getting back up, dusting yourself off, and actually applying the lesson you just learned the hard way. It can be really, really hard to see it in the moment, I know. But when you look back, it's almost always true, isn't it? The times we were really forced to struggle, to adapt, to overcome, those were the moments that built our character and taught us the lessons that actually stick. So ultimately, it's all about that reframe. The second we stop seeing adversity as something to run away from and start seeing it as an opportunity for growth, that's when we unlock a whole new level of our potential. And that's really the big takeaway here. I want you to think about a challenge in your own life, maybe something from the past or something you're dealing with right now. What happens if you stop calling it a failure and instead start seeing it as your greatest teacher,